By now, we've all heard about Arizona's new law, SB 1070. It's the one that empowers police and law enforcement officials to stop anyone at random and demand to see proof that they belong here. No papers, and you can be detained and ultimately deported. This effort to stem the flow of illegals is being applauded by the right and bashed by the left. We wondered what would happen if SB 1070 was enacted here in New York. Who would be targeted? What impact would that law have on our economy, our families, and the huddled masses that are the backbone of our diverse population? Take a look at all the people who are in the crowd. Look at the faces. Just by looking at these individuals, can you tell who is an immigrant? How would you know who is illegal and who is legal? Just by looking into the crowd. How would police know? We met with civil rights attorney Elsmeralda Simmons, whom broke down the law in Arizona. She questioned how would authority distinguish who is legal from illegal?
What that law does, I was going to say bill, but it's actually a law, and the Arizona government seems to be very proud of what they've done, is allow the government to stop anyone that they think looks like an immigrant. So tell me, what does an immigrant look like?
Immigrants, someone that's not from this country.
Non-U.S. citizen.
They come here, they just want to look for a good life, and they don't really make any problem.
I think everyone in America is an immigrant, unless you're Native American.
I mean, if they look at me, do I look like an immigrant? Do you look like an immigrant? It's basically legalizing what we would call walking while brown, walking while black, walking while, just being of a certain race or having an accent. It legalizes discrimination against those people.
We interviewed Avram Barlow, who is a teacher, historian, and author. He believes that it is more than a race issue. It's an economic issue.
The problem is that the way that our economic system is set up depends very much on having it's always dependent on having cheap labor to exploit. And those immigrants represent a source of cheap labor for a lot of people. So that demand in our system is not going to go away as long as we have the kind of economic system that we have.
The census estimates that there are 400,089 illegal immigrants in New York City who are most likely being employed by companies and individuals in need of cheap labor. Americans believe that these immigrants are stealing their jobs, which help to increase conflict between immigrants and natives.
These kind of restrictions can build more resentment, more hatred, more restrictions on people that ultimately will harm society. That ultimately are not they're not going to improve economic conditions. Carding people and deporting people is not going to improve economic conditions, but it's going to make life worse for a lot of people.
We sat down with Larry Martin, director of MDEC, which is a group that empowers young men, as well as Pastor Benjamin Garcia and Pastor Carolyn King of a local church, to discuss their feelings of this law and how it would impact New York City.
Usually when you have an economic downturn or people struggling with economics, it's easy to kind of look at the guy that just came on and say, oh, he's the fault. And people don't look at some of the other structural problems in the economy to blame.
So how would you react if this law came in New York?
What we're hearing about in Texas and Arizona, we hear about what's going on over there, and we think about if that comes here, how am I going to live with my family, thinking that one day on the way to church they're going to stop us, just because we look Mexican or just because we look the way we look. How are we going to live?
I would feel similarly outraged. Probably more so since I live in New York. And I can't imagine that ever happening here, though.
Just look at us, and we are not white, and they come up and ask, are you really legal staying here and stuff like that? It's annoying. Definitely it's annoying. I don't want that to happen in New York.
I've been here all my life, so I am legal. But for the ones that are doing things illegally, obviously they've got things to worry about. For a city like New York that's so diverse, where do you stop kind of thing?
A law like that in New York City would be very difficult. It would be much more difficult to enforce. I think there'd be much, much broader resistance to it. given the composition of the state and the city. So I don't know if they'll be able to pull that off.
I don't think there's a chance of it coming to New York. And if it came to New York, it would be challenged immediately. But what I don't like is the fact that, and by the way, the United States Justice Department is also looking at the law to see whether whether the United States federal government is going to challenge the legality of that law in Arizona.
These illegal immigrants and some corporations have many things to worry about. How will law enforcement identify who is legal from illegal? How would this impact companies in the New York City economy if illegal immigrants are totally removed? Will New York's staggering companies be impacted dramatically if illegals are eliminated?
There are probably so many hundreds of thousands of illegal people in the city whose work every day is critical to the running of the city, that if there was some attempt to sort of get rid of those people, this city would grind to a halt.
Overall, immigration needs to be changed. I think that if you look at history, every single great civilization grew because of its ability to absorb new immigrants. For example, Rome is a perfect example of that. The Mongols, in fact, was very, very adaptive to new immigrants, and America especially. So it's a question about allowing people to be able to enter the country legally, easily, so that they can then contribute to the society in a legal way. Otherwise, they wouldn't be here.
Americans are led to believe that illegal immigrants come to this country with bad intent, but some may say that we fail to realize how much these immigrants can add on to our economy.
Everybody that's coming in is a derelict. Everybody that's coming in is a murderer. Everybody that's coming in has ulterior motives and drug cartels. But his wife is an MD. So you know, everybody's not coming in too dirty, if you will.
If you're a Black American, you've been here for 400 years, how are Black Americans depicted 400-year-old immigrants? You know, if you are an immigrant who's only been here a couple of generations, how is your family depicted? So, you know, we all have our own way of projecting and establishing ourselves in the community. And I think that everyone has a valuable contribution.
Some argue that we should not deport illegal immigrants if this law did come to New York. Instead, we should find a way to make these illegals legal. So being that you're a pastor, and you being a pastor as well, how would you feel if you found out that you did have illegal immigrants come into your church and that the law said that if you did allow them in, you'll be prosecuted? How would you turn these people away? How would you still allow them to come in? How would you react?
I wouldn't turn them away. I'm probably going to go to jail for this. But I wouldn't turn them away as a pastor. They came in to hear the word. I would let them hear the word. I would sit them down after the service and say, okay, this is what we have to do. It would break my heart to turn you back over to whatever it is you're running from. But we have a law. I have an immigration attorney that I would contact and say, here's what we have. What can you do? They're here. What can we do?